He knows where the paychecks come from.
Exactly.
The lack of paychecks.
Yeah. I've been waiting for her to do this the whole time. It's not even shocking this time. So
It's
thought the
still
paychecks
really
came from
pleases
Jacob.
me.
We need to unionize. Down with the director.
Fuck y'all.
no, it's really the American way right now. Sorry,
It's
too
a- yeah.
soon. So okay, so let's dodge that bullet like Neo. While the director's distracted and laughing and burning off the cocaine high of what Q&As do for her, apparently, we're talking about the short stories.
Watching the podcast with that narrative in mind will be wonderful. Just to see,
I'm a little frazzled.
Right.
Sorry,
Yeah,
everyone.
it's got the look. And so she just spent 3.5 hours going through Q&As and notes and everything like that for us to pull the carpet out from under her, and we're going to talk
For
about
you.
stories instead.
For you
So-
guys.
Instead of all of the very intelligent questions and new information, we're talking about a short story. I'm okay.
Yeah, but for like
Okay.
an hour.
Oh no,
I
that's
thought
the
you
way of
as
saying
an
okay, that
author-
means she's not okay. She said she was okay. That means she's not okay.
I thought you
Oh,
as an
you-
author would appreciate us talking about a new story instead of questions.
I am a
Don't
Dresden
be ridiculous.
scholar. But
Is that
Zeta
on
was
your
awesome
resume?
anyway.
Sure,
I
sells
should
on
put it
mine.
there. Hey, this podcast got me my job, I swear.
See?
There you go.
Yeah.
So, spoilers. For the love of science, if you haven't read Zoo Days, spoilers.
Yeah, turn it off
And
now and
we're
go
going
away.
to swear at you, probably
Oh, it's
near
live.
you,
I already
along
did.
with you.
It's live. You
Fuck.
didn't tell me it was live.
You
Yeah.
just noticed this?
It's been for like 10 minutes, man. Where have you been? Where do we
I'm gonna
find
sleep.
people?
Retract
the job offer.
I know, right?
We have
You know,
a
this
little bit
shit's
of
going on
news.
the internet for all time, right? Like,
Yep.
Yes, and these people we decided we have to make permanent.
Don't lump me
Well-
in with him.
I mean, I don't have to, but okay. So news. You had news.
The little bit that we're willing to share now instead of next time.
Salty goat.
Was it about the custodians or the other stuff?
No, I was most talking about Jacob and Ben.
Oh, yeah. So we've got you guys now.
Forever.
I
And
got
like
you,
it.
baby.
We're all the better for it.
So what's the line? You're the lieutenant until you're killed or I find somebody better. So, whatever.
Excellent.
Yeah.
And when we have news, it'll be Jacob's job to do this always, because then I don't have to.
The news? Oh, are you kidding? Yeah, I was ready for like, okay, it's Q&As, so it's your show because you've got it memorized. I mostly just read it. So
And I transcribed a bunch of shit.
So-
I watched so much.
Who wants to give us our synopsis, or do we have more news than that? Nobody's voted. Like it's not the family prayer, guys. Like somebody can volunteer. So
What's the family prayer?
no, okay, you don't have that in your country. So here in America,
Here in God's country.
Right.
Oh, this is a terrible decision to keep you guys.
What the- I like how she blamed you for my thing.
Yep.
So,
And that
I'm
she hit the button.
Yep. All right. Okay, so the synopsis. So Zude, if you've known anything about Zude, if you've attended any of the Q&As for the last, like, say 6 months, you probably know that it's from 3 different perspectives. So I'm going to give a super high level because I'm going to fuck up some details anyway, and one of the other 4 of you is going to fix it and correct me. So 3 perspectives. I was wrong about one of my guesses. I was thinking that Murphy was going to be involved with this and should have just guessed because, she wasn't one of the perspectives. But Harry takes Maggie Jr. and Mouse to the zoo. What? She's Maggie Jr. What? That's what you're going to take issue with? Gosh. The people, man. This is what I got to deal with. All right. So they go to the zoo, right? And everybody's all sorts of fucked up. Okay, the people are fucked up and Mouse is okay. So you start off with Harry's perspective, right? You get a little bit. You're going through there. It's fun because you get their thoughts and perspective on things. And I'm not going to give you like a blow by blow, but Harry's trying to play cool dad, and he's just kind of looking around and being Harry, making sure nothing crazy and shitty's going on. And it's Harry, it's the new Harry, so he's a little bit more gruff than he needs to be, maybe, and he's worried about being a bad dad or whatnot. And they go in to the zoo, and of course it's Harry, so something's gonna happen. So basically, he starts picking up on some things.
Mouse worked very hard for it not to happen.
Mm-hmm.
True.
Very unlucky.
Well,
Not for nothing.
No.
Think if he didn't do anything.
Yeah. Whew.
yeah.
That'd be
So we'll get to that part. But basically, Harry starts picking up on some shenanigans. He goes and tracks it down. The whole classic. Everybody's read it in every book. The whole "it grated against my wizard senses" type of stuff. And he goes and tracks down this kid named Austin, who is a warlock. And if you've read the books, you
and
know
he's
how
got
Harry.
powers.
That's what a warlock is.
Austin Powers.
Okay. Just am I gonna have to drop the Dutch line? I mean, seriously. So there's this kid Austin, and you know how Harry is with warlocks, but it's like, I don't know. He didn't seem to necessarily be in his official warden capacity. I mean, that was still part of it there, but it was just mostly like, hey, I'm here with the kid. Maybe you shouldn't fucking blow up the zoo today. And they have their conversation a little bit, but the kid gets pissed off, as loose cannons tend to do. And, this demon basically shows up and jumps Harry. Harry, being a total badass, basically just sidesteps it, tears a hole out to the Never Never, seals it behind the demon, and says, really? Are we done now? Like, can we go get some French fries or something? Which I thought was a totally badass thing, because Harry basically walked off. He's got none of his tools. He's got none of his implements. I'm pretty sure he wasn't wearing his duster for this section. He basically just does this little pirouette, when he's about to get jumped, tears a hole into the Never Never, sends the demon through, and says, come on, kid. Like, let's go have a conversation.
All that map training,
right.
Forcing him to train without tools. Paid off.
I absolutely agree with you, and that's why I feel like this scene, despite being like maybe a couple of pages and not a lot's really going on, really sells you on how far Harry's come. Like, say this was book 3 instead, right? Harry's got to run through 3/4 of a hospital, and then at the end, when he's stuck, then he's going to try and open a way, and then he's going to like roadrunner, the fucking demon through the thing. And this one, Harry's just like, unzipped reality, pushed the demon in, zipped it back up. I didn't even break a sweat. Yeah, right. And he did it without his foci, and he did it without like any of his implements or anything like that.
No depleted uranium or anything.
Right. Yeah. Just no shenanigans. He just this is me. This is what I do now. So that was kind of cool. And from there, you cut over to Maggie's perspective. And each of these stories, adds a little bit of a layer. Obviously, you get a little bit further in the story, and you kind of see what happened from their perspective. I guess one of the bigger things that I left out there is when he goes to track down the kid, he put Maggie in, there at the zoo, right? So he put her in one of the like food court areas, and she's eating French fries with Mouse while he's off having this showdown and whatever.
I just want to describe how she decides to eat French fries. Is she picks up the French fry, dips it in mustard, licks off all the mustard, and gives the French fry to Mouse. Forever.
Well, yeah. How else would you eat a French fry?
Not with mustard.
I don't give that many to Mouse. I love them.
She's got issues. We can forgive her one little thing, like eating fries with mustard.
Now, at least now we
It's
know where
not the
Mouse.
mustard. The mustard is fine. Okay,
No,
I'll have you know.
The mustard is not fine.
It's really not.
Oh man.
And that's a European telling you, and they put weird shit on everything.
Well,
It could be he
Probably
doesn't
puts-
have normal mustard.
he puts mayo on French fries, so.
Ugh, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
the important details with the director. So Maggie's perspective story basically starts more or less in the same point. She's talking to Harry. She's where you get more of the perspective of like, why does he look mad all the time? And he looks super serious. And then he's like looking down the street at something, but he cracks a smile and is like trying to, be a dad and whatever. And she's got this moment about being, like, oh, we're going to go to the zoo and it's my first time. What if I do it wrong? And it's like, yeah, dude, we're going to the zoo. It's not really something you do wrong, like you just do it. And
pretty silly, of course. However, Mouse says it.
Right.
Says that several times. Like whenever they're worried about something, which is like, is it silly, he says, or it's something like that?
He calls it heart stupid.
Yes.
Mouse does, yeah.
Right. So, and that'll be, we'll get to some of that in for his story, because there is really amazing stuff. Like I really felt like his story tied everything together very nicely. So from her perspective, one of the things that's nice is that you get a lot of information about, what the book series that he's been teasing about writing with his sister is going to be about, which is, the kids, like mythology or pantheon or whatever you want to call it, basically, where they've got a whole, group of monsters and things like that you age out of, right? And so she starts talking about how, there's this monster and that monster and these people have been taken by that monster and whatever, and they don't even fucking know it because they're adults and they're stupid. But maybe they're just not stupid, maybe they're just adults, and some stuff like that. And
but some people may not be actually boring, they've just been baglered, which makes them talk about politics.
Right, which was hilarious too, because it's like, oh shit, I might sometimes be that person, and I definitely have those friends, and like, so there's this like old couple or whatever, and so she's like, yeah, they've been baglered, and all they do is talk about politics, and they just don't even know that it's happening to them, but she can see them apparently. What was the kids that she saw? What was the name of the critter that got them?
I will try to find it. Will take
you
me
got
too
your
long.
notes, yeah. So there are these
creeps a lot.
Right, the creeps was the general, like the baddies, right? So
they're all called, but they're something specific. Those black eyes,
right?
Haunts.
So the haunts.
Haunts, yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. I knew that one was a little bit more generic. So basically, there's this group of school kids that come through, like they're on a field trip or something, and they've got haunts. And so, in a way, it was kind of interesting to me, because I felt like it was just kind of normal kid stuff anyway, right? You've got the group of preppy kids looking down on, maybe the poor looking, girl who's got no self-confidence and whatever. And so a lot of what was happening just had undercurrents or shades of just childhood bullying in the first place. Whereas like to her, it was like these kids are possessed by these haunts and they don't really know what's going on. So she sees them and she's keeping an eye on them, and they're like following them through the zoo, but Harry and no everybody else doesn't seem to notice, but she does because she can see them. And so when Harry drops her off at the food court, they're eating French fries with the mustard and feeding the French fries to Mouse. One of the kids comes up and starts, bullying her basically, but it's the haunt, right? The haunts are trying to elicit these darker emotions because that's what they feed on, and they want to turn her into a haunt and everything like that. And was it pepper or salt that she used?
Salt.
So it was salt, yeah. So basically she just gets a handful of salt and like throws it in this girl's eyes, and for me, this was one of the things that I had a little bit of a problem with while I was reading it, because I was like, okay, I get it. People are baglered and whatever. But it's like, if I watched a kid throw salt in another kid's eyes, I would fucking notice that. Like, that's a shitty thing to do at the very least, let alone...
You would notice how homogenous, I said the expression, the idea I got from the school kids. They're all like, because they're all haunts, which I gathered was rare would happen. But that means they weren't really going at each other, and they were all being like an almost militaristic unit. And because they were completely taken over, they weren't being kids.
Right. That's fair. I could see that. So she hits the little girl with salt. The little girl like goes outside and gets all red-eyed and irritated, obviously, and more so because haunts. And then regroups with the rest of her other haunt buddies, and they basically wait for Maggie. And so at one point Harry comes back, I think, to check on her, and they have this side conversation about how he really should go help this boy because, you know, that's what he does, and she knows that's just how Harry is. So yeah, go help the boy, I'm going to be fine. And then she goes to face these haunts. And so she basically tells them there's this whole mythos basically between, like, she's got the book that the Carpenter kids started, and they know what the rules are, and the haunts have these rules, and she knows what the rules are because they're in this book, kind of like, you know, dealing with monsters in the Accords and everything like that, right? So monsters still have rules. So basically they have to go find like this deep dark place, and it becomes this whole, you know, win or die type of situation, like win or be converted into a haunt. They basically go into a couple of employee only sections down in this, you know, like abandoned stairwell, and have this showdown where, you know, she has to relive a bunch of trauma and everything because, you know, like, guess what? Multiple times during the story, they bring up the fact that she watched her, you know, guardians be murdered by the Red Court, and all the other crazy shit that's happened to her. So she faces down the haunts, and I forget the exact, you know, like how she gets out of it, but basically there's a little bit of, you know, Mouse tries to like edge his way in there because Mouse is doing mousy things, and that's when the haunts are like, you know what the rules are, you've got to follow the rules just like she
Guardian.
does. Yeah.
Man, I wanted to smack that haunt upside down. It was so smart.
It's totally kids, no cheating, you know, we're watching you. So they basically go down the thing, and then she starts to have these realizations, and it's like, oh, this is what's going on, and this is what I need to do. And then she just starts laughing.
Yeah, and she realized that there are all these bigger kids that have monsters in them, and they picked on the tiniest, littlest girl they could find who has serious issues. They're probably afraid of her, so she laughs in their face, and the haunts go away.
Right. Kid logic. I don't
Yeah.
you know.
Yep.
I mean, and it's not like there isn't, you know, it's the whole, you know, the whole anti, you know, antithesis and emotions and everything like that, right? Like, yeah, okay, you're afraid, so it's time to be brave. You know, like we've had some of these conversations in episodes and in side conversations in the fandom about like, okay, you know, what's the antithesis of like the Skavis and whatever, right? And so some maybe it's hope, you know, it's love for the traditional white court, for the wraiths and everything like that. And so these haunts, they prey on your despair, and to get rid of them is all about, you know, maybe not even necessarily humor, but it's about showing no fear. And so when she laughs it, she shows that she's not afraid, and then they basically like freak out and leave. So
and then there's very confused preteens just leftovers. Like, what the fuck just happened?
Right. Yeah, so this was one of my things where I was like, okay, I'm having a tough time with the whole like this. It's literally happening this way because that's how the Dresden Files is written, right? This isn't what's happening from Maggie's perspective. This is like literally happening. Literally, a bunch of kids are in the, you know, employees only section in the deep dark, laughing and carrying on. There's no chaperone. There's no parents. There's no employees. Like, there's nothing. She's just having this side battle. And I was like, yeah, okay.
I mean, chaperone wise, at least here in Denmark, in that age, we would be allowed. Like, basically, like, okay, run amok in the zoo, and we meet here at X o'clock. And then if you didn't show up, then they would look for you. But I mean, we did that when I was at that age.
Not here.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe not Chicago, like especially of all places, but having not been a 12-year-old in Chicago, I'm a defer to somebody else on that one. But it just, even living in Utah in the middle of freaking nowhere, like every field trip and everything had multiple chaperones. So it's not impossible that you could wander off. It just, that was one of the things that kind of stuck out to me. You know, for the story.
When I worked at a youth, like when I was like 18, I worked at like a youth school where like for like preteens to when I taught some coding, but we also had this trip with like every different class. It was like I don't know, it was like post school thing. Like you can learn new whatever. So some can learn cooking, coding, all kinds of things. You can go motorbike racing, something like for kids. And we had like this joint to what do you call that? With like where you go try rides and what's that called? You go to an amusement park.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and we were just told by the guy who like runs it, like, okay, you go in, you make sure everybody's there, and then like you say we meet here at this time, and you make sure everybody shows up, and then that was that.
Right.
And then we just like pretty ran around, like kept an eye on the kids as we ran into them, but they got to run around on their own, and they were like 12, 13. But
Sure.
maybe it's different. It wasn't the biggest city here, but maybe it's different in America.
I mean,
But I
if you
found it
want,
believable from my perspective.
if you want the in-world explanation, there is a very active force that's working against the three people in this story that's kind of setting the environment to be what it's supposed to be. So
Yeah.
maybe that contributes if that helps.
Well, that was definitely a consideration because it's like Harry's discussed as well. Like people avoid the spookiness, but I mean, if adults can't tell that these little children are taken by the haunts, then it would have to be this other force, which takes us to Mouse's story.
It could also be like just a nature of the haunts of making the kids act in a way to get them alone time, essentially, of like, these are the good behaved kids to the adult's perspective.
Right.
And then they just bullying behind their backs in ways of being able to perpetuate it forever.
Well, and they were in a uniform, so let's assume they were, at a prep school and, the good school with the rich kids and whatever else. And I can buy that for sure. It was just one of those things where it was like, yeah, I mean, I can't imagine being one of the side adults and not taking notice, but that's me. Maybe I'm clued into the spooky side, right? So for the in-universe explanation, but the best part of the perspective was Mouse. And I don't just say that because everybody's been waiting since, changes to get more of Mouse's perspective, but it's where everything starts to make sense and everything starts to get tied together. And it's such a fresh perspective that you start to see some things. And really with Mouse's stuff, it's like, I don't know if it's a dog person thing, but I couldn't help but smile at some of the stuff that he did and just kind of affected and everything.
Yeah, I very much enjoyed it. The one thing that annoyed me audiobook wise was that the Masters didn't do that accent that he did from the beginning. Like we heard from Mouse in Changes, he spoke. We know what he was saying, but he didn't have an accent. And in this book, he had an accent, and I liked the accent. I thought it was very fitting. But it annoyed me that the voice wasn't consistent from the previous. Like if you just forget, or just like he got a note, like he should have an accent.
Well,
Maybe
he also does talk a little bit different. You don't hear him saying stuff like, "Now turn them back, bitch." You don't hear him say stuff like that in this story. He's more like, "I am a good dog." So that's and he's smarter than that, but he still kind of talks in that lower sophistication in this story than he does when he just kind of shows up and changes. So
I mean, I
audience.
read the book. So
I was going to say he's talking to a bunch of stupid humans. He's got to keep it dumb.
Versus when he's talking to Leah.
Right. He was being alpha with Leah, right? Like, I will rip your ass off, literally rip it off. As opposed to like, you guys are my friends. You're my best friends.
Yeah. The first line of his perspective in this is, "My name is Mouse and I am a good dog. Everyone says so."
That's so good.
That's so
I am a good dog.
So for the poor guys who read the book instead of heard the accent, so what's the accent? Is it the dopey good dog accent? Is that what he did, or something else?
He did like slight Chinese accent.
Okay.
And then like a very optimistic and like kind of.
Okay.
Sounds like the good dog.
Right. And I mean, hell, that could just be he's having a good day, and I kind of buy the slight Chinese because Tibetan Mastiff and like from Tibet, so I kind of buy a lot of that stuff. But I just read him kind of as like the whole watch The Secret Life of Pets, right? Like with their parlance and things like that, where it's a little faster and it's a little broken up, where it's like, I'm a good dog. Yeah, everybody says I'm a good dog, type of stuff. So yes, my name is Mouse, and everybody says I'm a good dog. And so
And that means treats.
right, lots of treats. So he's been putting on a little weight. But it's also fun to see his perspective, because it's like, okay, Dresden knows that Mouse is smart and not just a little bit smarter, like he heard that conversation, right? But Mouse is like got his whole side perspective on what's going on. Like Harry is wrapped up in Harry being Harry, and Maggie is still wrapped up in her being her, right? So you get the whole like, what if I'm good, or what if I'm not good at this, and what if I'm bad, and what if I hurt you, and what if this is terrible?
Which of
And
course is
Maggie's like, what if I have a panic attack, and what if I have to run away? And Mouse is like, why are you guys so dumb? You guys just love each other. And as the director said, he calls them heart stupid. It's not their fault. They're just a little heart stupid.
They were saying all kinds of words, but what they were really saying over and over was, I hope you like me.
Right. Which is like, how could you not? You're family, and you're my best friend, and you're my best girl. Or what did he call her?
Well, it's my friend, which is Harry, and Maggie, but it's also that she's my little girl. She's the best little girl, and she's Maggie, versus Harry's always my friend.
Right.
It's a little interesting.
Right. Yeah. So you get a little bit of that perspective and things as well, and you find out, especially in the little bit beforehand, right? So there's this little moment before they go into the zoo where Harry's like, maybe we should go in, and she's trying to work up some courage and some other things, and they start to feel some shenanigans, and Mouse is like, I've been working on this for a fucking week. I've been putting so much good energy and vibes and everything out there, and it turns out that part of how he cheats is that he is just able to put out good luck, and he's just able to smooth things out. And so, he counters bad vibes, maybe bad feng shui, who knows, gastrointestinal problems, but he basically puts out
a spot in a crowded restaurant, easy peasy.
Right.
He can make sure a door is unlocked for a little privacy.
All the animals go crazy.
Right. Which, yes, is a great thing too. So one thing that I hadn't mentioned with the other stuff, but basically while they're going through there, right, like all the animals are acting up, and Harry kind of knows that Mouse is probably doing something going on, but Mouse talks about like how he talked to the otters, and he's like, this is my best friend and my girl Maggie, and like she wants to see you play. And I forget what the whole conversation was, but like the otter was like, what's that? And he's like, just play. And he's like, oh, we could do that. Like,
he says, could you please show off for her? She's never seen an otter before. It's like, show off? What the hell's that? It's like, go play. It's like, oh, okay.
Right.
Hey!
That was one of the better, I think, progressions of the three stories, because it's Harry who knows Mouse is kind of doing something. He can't put his finger on it. Maggie knows that Mouse is doing something in an even more in-depth way, and it's like their little secret. And then Mouse straight up tells you, I'm talking to animals.
Right. Yeah. So I'm Dr. Doolittle, but I'm a dog, so it's okay. So
Yeah, only humans think that you need to have a mouth to talk.
right. So they go through this thing, you get some of that perspective, and then, you start to feel the vibe, right? You start where Harry starts to perk up, and he feels what ends up being the warlock, at least for his perspective. And Mouse the whole time is like, something is not right here. Like, despite all the good works that I've done in all the smoothing out and the luckiness and everything like that, somebody is still trying to make them have a bad day. And he starts feeling this other kind of rumble and whatever. And so he clues in on that. And Harry thinks that Mouse is cluing in on the warlock. And so that feeds back onto Harry's story. But really, Mouse is like, yeah, no, that's great. Go deal with the human kid. But something else is going on. And so you get a little bit of his perspective. You get his whole, like, French fry perspective and dealing with the kids, and he can sort of tell the creeps, but he's still not good at it. Like, he knows there are creeps around, but he can't necessarily tell like where they are or what they're doing until they get very close. So even still, he's like, okay, I kind of know stuff is going on, but Maggie's got to deal with it because she's the kid. So you get some of that, and then when he follows her into the deep, creepy place where she ends up going to have her solo showdown with all the haunts, he's like, it's funny because like the haunt kid is like, you know the rules and you can't come down here and do the thing. And he's like, I don't even fucking care about that. I'm busy trying to figure out what the fuck is this over here and trying to figure out what all this other dark energy is. Spoilers, it's his brother or a brother, because not all of the puppies got saved from the place. Less is more better than none, so...
I actually think that all the puppies got saved, if I remember right from the story. The evil puppy was taken home by the brother guy, monk, and simply just turned bad.
No, what he said was when Harry came to pick up the dogs from the... whatever the fuck they call the flying monkey poo people.
Octokongs.
No, that's much later.
I mean, I like it.
Voltron monkey things.
Yeah.
I still think of that name every time I hear them.
Two of them, the largest male and the largest female, had been taken away before Harry got there. Right. And then Mouse went away with Harry, and then the rest of them went back to Tibet.
Yeah, the reason why no one was at the school except for the monkeys was apparently the sorcerer or Urs were out doing their ritual to corrupt these two dogs, at the same time that Harry came to save the other dogs. And I mean, I think all Harry knew was they're off busy doing something else. I'll sneak in and get the dogs, because he doesn't ever seem to pick up the trail that, they took two dogs to go turn them. And whatnot. So what's funny about this is it's one of those classic, like, Mouse finds out that there's this dark force that's been working against him this whole time, right? And Mouse is like, "Who are you?" And the dog's like, "Dude, I've like been trying to hurt you this whole time." Like that part of it was funny to me, right? Because it's like, it's been how many years that this dog has been running around doing God knows what on the side. And today he decided to like show up and try and ruin the day.
I actually got the impression he was actually there to work on corrupting the warlock, and they were in the way.
And that was part of it, but I felt like that was just one of the multitude of things he had put in motion just against Harry because reasons. I'm not sure I ever got like a good reason why the dog was working against them. Just fuck you, that's why.
Well, it was...
Well, because he was sent, more or less, probably.
There was that, but... as Mouse is figuring out what he calls the shadow, his brother, is doing, is basically he's going to try to either hurt Harry or trying to steal Maggie.
Mm-hmm.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and then he realizes at the end which one to go for,
yeah.
Which is why he goes back to Maggie.
Yeah, because then Harry does this like zoop, and you're gone.
True. Yeah. So and so you basically get to replay all of these stories and kind of see what's going on. So the fact that the warlock is there because the dog brought him, the dog had already actually worked the warlock up into, like, his special power was demon summoning. Surprise, because he summoned a demon, but he actually had 3 of them, right?
There's 3 or 4 of them, and Mouse dealt with 2 and got a little injured, but the last one escaped, and that's the one that Harry dealt with. Right,
and that's the one where Harry's like, "Oh, you can summon demons," and then that's not even a problem for me because this is what I do, kid. So yeah, Mouse deals with 2 of them. He chases his brother all through the zoo. They have a merry chase, and then he realizes, I'm being distracted, and Harry can take care of himself. I'm going to save the girl. And so, yeah, he runs back to her pretty much. They have a showdown right still while she's down dealing with the haunts, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So he has a duel with his brother, basically winds up on top. Again, he had more or less been giving his brother a run for his money most of the time anyway, but this is where the whole, like, I eat a lot of treat stuff comes in because he's a little chunky monkey now. And, he's a little...
like, "You're fat." I was like, "Yeah, I'm a good dog. People give me treats."
Right.
I like how he's like, "I'm happy and fat, and you can be fat too," or something like that.
Right.
Like, come join me. Be good dog.
Come back to the light side.
Yeah, his whole conversion thing was totally dog too, right? It was like, when I'm good, I get treats and people love me. So if you want treats and to get loved, all you got to do is be good. Like, that's all you got to do, man.
Easy, right? Treat, dude. French fries. I tell you.
Yeah. So what else am I missing there? Because I feel like I'm missing something else after he gets back to Maggie and everything like that.
He has a showdown with Shadow and injures him enough that he goes away, and then Maggie finished up with the haunts, and they all go back to the diner and they have French fries with Austin.
With Austin, also important because that was one of the first questions I saw was like, in his briefcases tour, that it was like, hey, Austin's coming back, right? And he's like, yeah, probably, because it's Butcher and he's lazy, right? So
then they drove Austin home.
I thought Austin was gonna be the new his new apprentice.
I mean, maybe.
Look what happened to the last one. You don't have very good track record.
It was like, the thing you need is another dead apprentice, but here we are. So.
I was going to say, he takes over, he trains a guy this time so that he can take, and then that's where we'll start. And the theories about how he's going to take over the Night Mantle.
Yeah.
There you go.
New Summer Night. Fix is going to go AWOL.
I was going to say Winter Night because Harry's got to get out of the job.
Oh, you think so?
No, I don't think so. I think he's going to keep that stuff right up and possibly even through to the end. But
there was a character moment. I don't remember if you touched on it during Harry's section where he has like that moment of conversation with Maggie about whether he should go and help Austin or not. Did you mention that? Okay, because
briefly,
that's an important.
It is important. You're totally right. So go ahead.
Yeah, it's that Maggie believes that Harry should be the kind of person who saves people, and even if that means leaving her alone, then from her perspective, she wants to go, ferret out the haunts or deal with them, and then he'll be away. But also, she knows that she'll be protected by Mouse, and also she knows that that's who Harry is according to Molly, and that's really just who he should continue to be, even though they have this new relationship. He shouldn't just close himself off. So.
Well, and to expand on that a little bit before that, I think it's important because especially if you've read Day One, you can tell the mindset that Harry's in. He senses the danger. He decides that it's not something so bad that he needs to interrupt his day for, and he says, "Fuck it, I'm not going to go investigate this." And it keeps coming up. And so finally he like looks off in the distance and she's like, you gotta go deal with this, right? And that's when he ends up leaving her in the place and getting French fries and stuff. And he has this conversation. He's like, it's not important because you're important. And she's like, yeah, but Molly says you're a good guy and I want you to be you, so you go deal with the problem. And it is one of the tender moments. Like there are at least three really good tender moments between the two of them where it's like, he's worried about something going bad and being a bad dad. She's worried about her panic attacks and running home. And then they're like, okay, well, we're going to do this. We're going to go into the zoo. There we did it. We crossed the threshold. We're in the zoo. And then you have this moment where he's like, fuck it, I'm not going to help this kid because I'm busy with my daughter, which is kind of the same thing he told Butters. He's like, hey, Butters, I'm going to Michael you for a minute. He's not going to give you something that he's not going to give you a load too big for your shoulders. So I'm not coming.
I wanted to bring this up, and apropos since you bring it up, I am annoyed that, because I just heard the story, he's going into Zoo Day in the Warrior, whatever its first day, whatever it was called.
Day one.
Day one. And he's like, I'm about to go into the zoo. And not once from Harry's perspective is he like thinking about, damn, I'm really sad or annoyed that I turned down Butters, but I know he can handle it or something. Just like, because Harry would think about that.
Well, I think with all of the stuff that he's gone through, basically all the way from Summer Night of like, yeah, I actually need to tell people what's going on, make them capable of dealing with their own things and all of the other issues going on, especially after changes.
It's my point. Like, I understand that he made the decision he did, but I still think he would at least like have a thought about it. Like,
Except he also knows and has experience with how the White God works and how Knights of the Cross get their missions. Of like, he genuinely will not give you something you cannot handle. This is for you. I'm not the one to interfere.
Right.
Like,
it's two things, okay. And I don't disagree with you, Andreas, but I think the more important and the more correct answer is we're seeing Harry as the dad protector from changes, as the White Knight, even past that. where basically, if the whole world burns, fuck it, the kid and I will roast marshmallows. Today, he is her shield. He's not just Harry Dresden. He's not the Winter Knight. He's not all these other things. He's his little girl's father, and he's being so stubborn and digging his heels in about it to the point where he doesn't want to go potentially save lives and stop this warlock because he's going to go have French fries with his kid. And
I think Andreas is just saying that he didn't even mention it as a matter of continuity.
Yeah, so, that's what I mean. I'm not saying he should do something. I think Harry would be like, think about it. It's like once, be like, oh man, I wish
you would have felt better if there was a throwaway line where he's like, oh man, I really hope Butters is okay, but fuck Butters, we're having French fries.
I think it's mostly, I think that part's mostly the author's liberty, storytelling liberty, to not have to be so beholden to continuity that you have to throw out these little things, because a short story has to be so compact and so focused, and there's already so much going on in Zude that even that little throwaway line could affect the way you interact with the story or the balance, especially after reading it in an anthology. So it might have been an editorial or an authorial decision like that.
Well, and also when he calls them, it was a couple hours before they were going to the zoo, right?
It would have to be. I mean, he didn't have a cell phone.
So. Right, because I'm saying he calls them at the apartment or whatever it is. He says, I'm taking Maggie to the zoo in a few hours. I don't think that much more time passes.
To go. I don't think it's a few hours.
All right, but even so, I don't think there's that much time that passes in between when Butters makes that call and when there's a resolution, right?
Yeah, there was maybe an hour.
Yeah, so I mean, even then, so Harry's taking her to the zoo. He's by that time he's probably had his monologue, but on the way there, and now he's in Maggie mode.
Right.
Yeah, it's super weird that both those things happen at the same time.
I blame the dog.
Yeah, no, I mean, it really does seem to be that, right? And Mouse kind of brings that up as well. Like, there is a lot of weird, random shit, even for Dresden, happening right now.
I mean, there's 3 different issues happening in the zoo alone, and there's something significant enough to get a Knight of the Cross involved.
Well, yeah, but I mean, Rookie, he's like level 1 Knight of the Cross, like,
He's just got his first quest. That's true.
Right. So I don't know. Yeah, I'm okay with that, right? I'm okay with saying the dog fucking did all of it, right? Like he was behind all 4 things. The next logical question then is if he was sent by whom and to what ends, right? Like, okay, so great, you ruined the day at the zoo. Having just gone to the zoo today, that's not the end of the world for me, but I could see how if it's your first time with your she's 12 now, 12-year-old kid, and everything, that it's a big deal for them, right? But it seems like something Harry would have gotten over. So something else was going on here, like especially the whole, like, if kidnapping her was one of the ends, they have to know that's going to end in genocide somewhere. Like Harry's not just going to fucking kill you and your boss and your boss's boss. He's going to find a way to end your entire race. Why would you even just like muck with that? Like, were you guys not around when this happened last time? So there's only a tiny handful of people I could think of with the brass balls or the wherewithal to try and do something like that.
Incoming conspiracy theory, just to annoy Justin, is that, given the fact that Cal was totally Harry in a weird time-dimensional thingy, and that Shadow's got to be Cal's dog, and that's why, Cal has the brass balls in order to go against Harry like that, right?
Well, I mean, to be fair, he's my leading culprit, but the why still doesn't line up, right? Well, he's got the motive, he's got the means, I guess, but like, I mean, motive is kind of the why, but in this case, I mean, just to fuck with Harry isn't super high up on Cal's thing, but they're like, who else is around who has been in Chicago and would do those things? Like, I don't know, but maybe it's just a new person that we're just.
Well, I was going to say, because it seemed, and if I'm remembering this correctly, the dog was a little more than a little arrogant about what he thought Harry's capabilities were, that these demons were just going to annihilate him, basically. And most people, when they run into Harry for the first time, tend to chronically underestimate him. So that seems to be a pattern of maybe this is a new player. Maybe this is a Fomor thing, and they still haven't really encountered him a ton, and they don't know what to make of him. And now you've got this other, Shag Nasty was the same way. He didn't think anything of Harry.
Well, and I mean, honestly, Shag Nasty had every reason to not think anything of Harry.
Granted, but at the end, even he's like, that was. I think the line is that was hardly pathetic at all. I mean, he respects him at the end, at least.
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, in that case, Harry was literally using the island against him, so he was definitely hitting outside of his weight class and cheating heavily. But yeah, I like the perspective. I mean, it's almost got to be somebody new because the dog is just so clueless, practically. Like how Harry dispatched that one demon. Do you really think his two buddies were going to do much more than rip his shirt? At that point, like, okay, yes, now I'm inconvenienced and I've got to go to the first aid station.
The dog was making Harry so unlucky. He said that they would this one time.
Well, and it's funny because this all just brings it more to my mind that the dog was just like a comically bad villain, to the point where it's like, I've got an unlucky aura, and these three demons are going to jump Harry and tear him limb from limb because he's going to slip on a banana peel. Like, really, that's your plan? That's what's going to happen here, dude? Like, you're attacking him at the zoo. Like, come on, this is like
Unleash
almost mustache twirly. Yeah, right? Like, well, I mean, not only are there like better things around that you could do shenanigans with. P.S. I did like the little bit of a nod towards the Hagatian hags, or the Hecatian hags, sorry, from Welcome to the Jungle. So a little bit of a comic book nod where he's like, hey, I've been to the zoo before when something else got loose, right?
Yeah, let's go see that gorilla Mo.
Right.
Well, as much as you hate the comic books, Alex, they are canon. They were just referenced in the book.
Yeah, so
thought they were terrible quality.
They are.
Well, okay. The adaptations are pretty bad, but the Wild Cards is fun, or wasn't it? I think it was Wild Cards. A couple of the other ones that are just
I still need to read
art adaptations were all right. I liked them. I haven't read Dogmen yet, though.
Yeah, I need to read the last 2 or 3. Okay, new conspiracy theory. You ready for this? I need to go look up the timeline for Day Off. Maybe the kids didn't go home after he screwed up their bad feng shui. Maybe they decided to get serious and corrupt one of the dogs, right? No, that's too much power for even them. But I'm just like,
really like the cowl idea because someone stole the dogs in Blood Rights, and Cowl and Outsiders have constantly been the ones behind everything in all of the books.
Sure.
So it's got to be Cowl's fault.
Yeah, it just seems like if Harry had to deal with the dog instead of Mouse, it was not on Harry's level. Like, that's the thing I'm trying to think of. So, like, unless we go Ace, who also has no power, right? Who else is just running around trying to make Harry have a bad day? And maybe this goes back to, like, the van thing again, right? Like, there are still loose threads out there that you can latch onto, but
wasn't there a line? I forget which novel it was, which case file. I'm sure there was a line where you've done almost nothing but deal with this outsider black. Which case file had that?
I want to say that was Cold Days, basically the same thing that Rashid and Vadarung said in practically the same conversation with Harry.
Right. So that would mean if you just collapse everything behind the scenes, especially all those open threads in Proven Guilty, into Cowl stuff. I mean, that seems to be an in-universe canon explanation for me. Or Cowl stuff meaning Black Council, Cowl stuff, outsider stuff.
Yeah, right. And that's what I would say, because Cowl, ironically, is the face of the Black Council, even though we don't know his face yet, even though everybody should hopefully know who he is at this point. But I'm just calling it because I can't think of anybody else it's going to be. But for me, until it's like, haha, I'm really, whatever.
I hope he's just Cowl. I hope that was just the name on his birth certificate.
Yeah.
I just want him to be his own person. I don't want it to be some other
Darth Vader is not on his birth certificate. I'm sorry, man. So, like, here's Darth Cowl.
I did have a thought about the structure, kind of from a storytelling perspective, of Zoo Day. People were calling it like Rashomon. Have you seen the movie Rashomon, right? That old Japanese samurai movie. It's wonderful, but it's ultimately about different perspectives disagreeing with stuff, right? And I saw the murder, and then I saw the murder, and then this medium comes up and says, "I'm the ghost of the murdered man. Here's what happened." But all these stories conflict and completely characterize everyone else in the same event in very different ways. So it's kind of more about disagreement and washing things aside, and how everything's kind of blurry, and you can't really know what really happened. But in this one, it seems like it's zeroing in on clarity. It's more like it's deeper meanings of the same thing, where
Right.
Harry's
Like a
just seeing
Russian nesting doll.
yeah, Harry's just seeing literally the most obvious stupid things, and then Maggie's a little bit more aware, and she sees the Bagglers and the haunts and everything, and she knows how Mouse does his stuff, and then Harry Harry completely misguesses what Maggie's saying, and Maggie kind of knows more what's going on in the conversations, and Mouse is just like, "That's stupid. You
Right.
should be smart. Your heart's stupid. Come on." And,
Well, it kind of makes Mouse truth, right? Like Mouse is like, I know the most truth about what's going on,
Right. And so it's an interesting way to, rather than tell the same story from different perspectives, and it's literally the same story, it's same events, and nobody knows the truth. This is more like it's adding on more stuff in every iteration, and then it's adding some good perspectives and getting to the heart of the matter. Even if it's done, it's pretty obvious what the core meaning is. I think we're supposed to kind of agree with Mouse as a perspective character, in terms of they're just saying, "I hope you like me," and we're kind of supposed to take that as what's really going on in them. Well, exactly. Mouse knows too much, but Mouse knows too much, and not because he's stereotypically intellectual or he can talk people under the wagon. He's not a white council politicking member, but he just a good dog, and the good dog cuts through everything. It just knows the truth. It just sees with heart smarts whose heart's stupid. So I really like that element of the story. I don't know if that's conversation starting.
Says he can't make more, like, from Mouse's perspective, because Mouse is just like, he's tuned into everything.
Right, exactly. That's why we didn't have it for a while, right?
And to piggyback off that, because when we were just talking about why Harry, if he ever just put his mind to it to go find out these things about Cal, about who hit him, with the car, so on and so forth. By dint of the fact that this is a first-person story, Harry has to be that guy, because otherwise we know everything and there's nothing left to write. He can't ever just be the guy. If this was a third-person story, we could have the characters that he knew nothing about talking in the background that only we, the reader, knew about. Like, watch out! No, we can't do that with him. So by that, the nature of the story, he has to be kind of the idiot that forgets about, oh, what was that? They said I was a Starborn like 3 times? What?
Well,
but the most powerful people I've ever met have called me a Starborn. Whatever.
I think it's past that too, though, because so people talk about Harry being an unreliable narrator, and I think there are some things where he's like, I forget shit, but I really feel like the books are written in a past, like in a hindsight perspective.
Oh, absolutely.
Harry absolutely fucking knows what's going on when he's writing them. Yep. He's jerking you around for the drama of it.
Which is also fine.
Because
he's a wizard.
To me, it's a meta. Yeah, it's Dresden is writing,
or he's just like, he knows, and he's just writing these for posterity or something, and he's like, didn't think about
Dresden is channeling what a Starborn. He's just jerking you around.
Well, yeah, I really think the meta of the Dresden Files is he references in some of the case files, especially some of the earlier ones, he makes his notes and he talks to Bob. Okay, he's got the perspective of what happened when it happened, right? Then you get a little bit meta with, and I think Butcher's even talked about this in AMAs and other things, Q&As, with the whole, my name is Harry Blackstone Copperfield Dresden, conjure by it at your own risk. You're fucking level 1, dude. What's the risk? Because he's writing these after. So this all ties into my whole meta theory where he is going to survive. He is going to get out from his various impediments like the winter night and things like that. He's going to write his journals. He's not writing them as it happens per se. He's going to write it afterwards. And the reason why they're fucking noir detective is because Harry sees himself as that guy. Harry's like, I like noir and I'm kind of a detective wizard. Let's write in that style.
Admittedly, I get really dumb about women.
Right. Oh, yeah. And like everybody's hot because that's what Dresden remembers 20 fucking years later when he's writing the books. Like.
Also, he's a charitable guy. Like we talked about that before. It's like
right. He remembers them as their best self.
To everyone but himself.
Even the ones that aren't that pretty, he still describes them in a, like, on a good day. She could be cute.
Yeah, I could see why I would be attracted to her.
Right. So it's just.
Yeah, he's writing these books after Benicio dies, and he takes over the books.
Well, I was going to say, the question becomes, in your mind, is he writing these books, these case files, after the trilogy, or is he writing them up until the trilogy, and the trilogy is kind of going to be everything's up in the air because he wrote these up until that point?
That would be great if he just levels up and then he writes the novel, the whatever. Oh man, that would be great. I would love that. Then he could bounce perspectives.
I personally think they're his memoirs after he got to level 20 and the epic campaign is over and he beat Tiamat, to reference something in my life. I'm just kidding, sort of. But I think it's like his end. Like I think he's after going back and looking at it, and so I think some of these things that he doesn't bring up is because part of it is he didn't know at the time, and part of it is because it's going to be more compelling to find it out later. But I really feel like the files themselves he's not writing them necessarily immediately after the fact, and they're not necessarily happening in a real perfect time. I think Skin Game is kind of evidence of that, right? There's this whole meta story that's going on in Skin Game with the whole, oh, by the way, read it twice because afterwards you're going to realize what happened. He set that shit up in advance, and then you did the whole 24 hours previously, we're going to tell you what really actually was happening. Right. So we're not getting the books perfectly from his perspective in the moment. They really are written after the fact, So
this is memoirs.
Exactly. And he's a wizard and he's a pop culture nerd. So he's got these embellishments, and yes, he's a total badass, but he's going to make himself look a little bit better. But I think part of his perspective is too, he's not going to shy away from showing you when he was a little bitch, because it's important that if you try and do the shit he did, you might die. Not just might, you're probably going to die, and I think he's honest with the whole, I was very lucky. And that's his perspective, is that I didn't get out of this because I was good, at least not in the beginning. I got out of this because I was lucky, and because Morgan saved me and gave me CPR, and because of, and because, and that's his perspective. Whereas where these other stories like Aftermath become important is because, maybe you don't realize this, Harry, but you're the angel of fucking death to a lot of other people. Right. You're not just lucky, with Rashid's thing, even with the in Turncoat, if I remember right. It's except let's go through just a slightly different perspective where you're the dark wizard rallying all the fairies to do God knows what. What are you going to do with all the little folk, Harry?
You hold two of the swords without even pretense to the faith. Right. Very dangerous. Right, exactly.
Yeah, you're over there grabbing all this power up. You are the Black Council if there is one, and Harry's like, shit, what? I'm the bad guy? and now he's the bad guy, now he's Mab's Wetworks man. So
the one that sticks with me is the Aftermath Mountain, or was it Aftermath? Where he's Murphy's talking. He's like this quasi-autistic kid who never looks at anybody in the eye, who bursts into competence at the least sign of danger.
Right.
She doesn't say it like that, but that's the effect. Oh, man. Anyway.
That reminds me about something I saw in the Facebook group, the Appreciation Society, I think it's called. Mm-hmm. That someone was arguing that Harry is not the hero of the story. And I kind of have a problem with that, because even... Let's say it like this. I said he may not be the most heroic of the story. That might be why can't I remember his name now?
Mouse.
He might be the Tarrasque. He might be the big bad.
No. I think what I'm saying, this person says he's not the hero of the story. He's like the Merlin of the story, and someone else is the author, the hero. Where I'm of course he's the hero of the story. He may not be the most heroic person in the Dresden Files universe, but he's the hero,
the protagonist. Right.
Yeah, and I think that's a lot of what Butcher is selling as well, right? a lot of things and a lot of how he philosophizes for some of the various moments. Like, he's going to show you how it is, not how you want it to be or how, heroics in pop culture normally sell it. Like, yes, there's good and bad, but, the bad guys didn't just wake up and put on their evil mustaches today, and power is good, but too much power, maybe you start twirling that mustache, and some other things like that. And so, yes, he's a hero, but he's not, he's not Superman. He's not quasi untouchable. He's very human.
But to bring it back to Zude, are you thinking at the hairy level? Or why aren't you thinking at the mouse level?
I
Just
believe
be a
I'm
good
thinking
dog.
at the mouse level.
Why
So
can't you be a good dog?
Who's
Give
my
me
mouse?
There
Who
will
knows
be
the truth?
Well, that's your answer right there. Mouse is not
The
going to deal with
controversy.
somebody who's not the hero of the story.
I
That's
can't
the fair.
remember his Michael. Michael's probably the most classically heroic.
And that's
Yeah.
the point. You have to
Early
be
retirement.
Right.
So Michael can't be the hero anymore, anyways. At least not unless he's going to do a semi-permanent loan of somebody's grace. So
The argument that guy said was that the Bigfoot's son is the hero. He's going to be Arthur.
Oh, good God.
why do you guys got to do drugs before we got to do the podcast? This shit is permanent, right? It doesn't go away.
I don't agree with it. I just saw what that person on Facebook said, and I was just like, "You can get out of here."
Right.
I think
I
that's
feel
what
like
I
you're
said, and he
spreading the
replied, and I
propaganda.
didn't bother because I was like, "I said my piece. Get out of here."
There are definitely ideas that are too dangerous to put out there on the internet, Andreas. You can't just bring this shit out there and let the kids go play with the firecrackers and stuff, man. You got to.
The one I heard, Mab is actually Murphy.
No, stop.
Mab and Murphy are the
I
same.
know. I already know. Stop it.
I will leave the podcast.
Right. That's it. I quit.
I said, what if that's
Password
Jim's
is-
alt? What if that's Jim's alt account and he's trolling everyone left on his forum?
He's
Oh,
not.
dude.
I swear to God, it's not him.
If he's got that kind of free time.
Yeah, right.
He's got that kind of.
Yeah. Like, I'm not saying that time travel is not going to be involved somewhere. I'm just saying of all the places you could involve it, this is no. This, like,
Well, there's support. Leah needs to fill in for Mab when Mab's doing something else. What if that something else is working at CPD?
I mean, you've never seen Murphy and Mab in the same place at the same time, right? So
That's so stupid. Sorry.
Unless you count the statue in Arctis Tour.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah. Ha!
It's like, we it's
the
crazy.
simple things like reading.
Yeah. Well, it's more like, remember that one time Mab got
Why
eaten
did
by
you
the
rip my
nightmare?
tinfoil? It was a perfectly fine piece of tinfoil.
No, it wasn't. I've been beating
Remember
on
that
that
time
tinfoil
Mab
for at
used the
least 4 years now.
chainsaw on
I
the
put it through the dishwasher.
Summer
It's
Garden?
clean.
Yes, on the
Yeah.
chlorophene.
You know when Mab
Yeah.
goes shooting with her guns made of
Right.
iron?
Right.
She has gloves. There's nothing you
That's a
can't
huge
tinfoil away.
Cubbies fan. So just go Cubs. Woo! All right, can we
Okay.
do we gotta plug stuff or something? I mean, is there any who's got the truth? Who's doing the truthiness?
Mouse.
Right.
Yeah,
He's
who's our
such a
mouse?
good boy. Okay. If you like our craziness, you might also like other flavors of crazy. It's probably not fair. These guys are probably more sane than we are. So
Mint
I don't
chocolate.
know. Have you seen High Fantasy?
no. So so we've got Dangerous to Go Alone, which is a podcast about nerd and geek culture. We've got the Great Scott podcast, which is a podcast about The Office. Then we've got High Fantasy, which is not like, high fantasy.
Not
Despite
usually.
the director.
And half the time we're just talking about Dresden again because, when I don't know what else to talk about, I just talk about Dresden.
So what do you got coming up for that one?
I have no fucking clue.
Dresden?
Wait.
Okay.
Solid.
Possibly. Was it
Q&As. Q&As.
Right. Which that's coming for us. And then we also have a relatively recent edition, which is Sim Talk. Jacob's been putting that one on, and he's been putting together guests from the simulations industry and people like that to just talk about simulations. So seems like he's doing a pretty good job with that.
And when are the rest of you going to do something? Come on, get active.
Yeah, like the 5th of Never. It's scheduled. It's March 31st, right? There's no March 31st, so I scheduled everything for that day. No, I'm the only one.
But now I get it, but now I have to make sure that it's like, is that right? Oh, whatever.
You're doing the song in your head, right?
Yeah, right. 30. Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, don't sing it. Don't.
I know